Whether it's cars, comics, video games, or violins, there's a little geek in all of us. It's time to give your geek a voice. It's time for Geek Therapy. Here's your host, Johnny Hamburger.
I want to go to a Lady Gaga concert wearing nothing but a diaper and a bib so that I can get there and tell everybody that I'm goo-goo for Gaga. Welcome to Geek Therapy Radio. I'm Johnny Hamburger, your mental curator for this evening or this afternoon, this morning, whenever you're listening to Geek Therapy Radio, whether it's on the air, right here on KPRC 950 AM, or the podcast. I like to say, it's kind of alarming how much I like to say it, but, if you listen to the podcast, you can take me in the shower with you. Like, you don't even have to put your speaker, your Bluetooth speaker, your phone or whatever in the shower, obviously, unless you have a shower speaker, but you can just set it right, on the sink next to the shower. And while you're going about your business, you can be listening to me. And doesn't that sound nice? I can tell you about all sorts of geek things and all sorts of idiotic mumblings that I tend to make on here while you're, cleaning your bits. And that is just fine with me. A quick story I wanted to touch on right here off the bat because it's cool to me. I'm geeking out over it a little bit. And aptly so, or what? Rightly so, because this is Geek Therapy Radio. I'm a bit of a musician. I play guitar and I sing and do stuff. So, a story came out, I guess you would say, that there's going to be a limited run of acoustic guitars made using wood and other materials reclaimed from Jimi Hendrix's family home. So like the wood and the floors and the wood and the walls and the paint and plastic pieces and whatever, it's all being used to create a limited run. I believe it's 10 of them. All that reclaimed material being used to make an acoustic guitar. So, an acoustic guitar made out of Jimi Hendrix's house. I don't know how good it's going to sound. It sounds to me like, anybody who's plays acoustic guitars is thinking that just because the wood is used in the construction of a house does not necessarily mean that, it's going to sound great. And I would tend to agree, but you know what? I have a feeling that the people making this guitar might know what they're doing more than the layman, more than me, for sure. But I just think that's really neat that they're making an acoustic guitar made out of the reclaimed materials from Jimi Hendrix's actual home. I can't find a price anywhere. I believe I read that they will be auctioned off, and some of the proceeds are going to go towards, some charities. One of the charities is one that Jimmy set up for, like, building parks. What is the foundation? The Jimi Hendrix Park Foundation, a nonprofit overseeing the development of a park near the original family house. That is an excerpt. That's a quote from newatlas.com. So that's good. If I was going to wager a guess at how much these guitars are going to be sold for, at least 10 grand. I could be way off the mark and these things could go to auction for 6 figures. I highly doubt that, but I hope so. I hope to be proven wrong, and I'll revisit the story later and see how much the guitars were auctioned off for, since I'm sure that's not going to be big news, but among the guitar world, among guitar players, it's going to be interesting and relevant. So, and I'm sure even if you don't play music, you sure as heck have listened to Jimi Hendrix. Even people who don't like music know Jimi Hendrix. You can hear a Jimi Hendrix song within one note and know that it's a Jimi Hendrix tune. So we'll see how much these guitars go for. Something else that happened recently. Actually, no. I'll get to this first. I will get to this first. I know a lot of people listening to this show. who are not necessarily computer geeks, but may have partaken in this legal gray area of the internet, and that is torrenting files. Torrenting music is definitely illegal unless the artist is like, doesn't have a label and is like, yeah, sure, download my stuff. So not all of BitTorrenting is illegal. And I'm sure a lot of you are well aware of the ongoing legal battle between lawyers and websites that host BitTorrenting. I know that Pirate Bay constantly is in legal turmoil, and they keep winning. Like the Pirate Bay stays alive because basically they're saying we're not the ones providing the illegal files. Like, sure, people might put illegal files on here, but not all of it's illegal, and people just share files through our site. We are not actively engaged in anything illegal. If our users use it for something illegal, that's on them, which I don't know, might be kind of a flimsy premise, but sites like the Pirate Bay keep surviving, which is, what's dumb? And you know why the Pirate Bay is such a lightning rod for these cases? Because they named their site the Pirate Bay. They named their site after piracy of files, piracy of music, piracy of movies. So no, the name of the site doesn't necessarily mean that the site is illegal. But come on, you named it Pirate Bay, and you have a picture, like your logo is of a pirate ship. Like, of course you're going to be blown up by governments wanting you to take your site down. So anyways, to me, it's kind of like the black market. And this is an extreme example, but like black market gun dealing. Like, is the person who's providing all these illegal firearms to people who then go and commit horrible atrocities with the firearms, like, is the seller of those weapons subject to manslaughter charges? In a recent case in Germany, yes. There was a guy in Germany who sold a gentleman some illegal firearms, and the gentleman, I'm not calling it gentleman, the man used those illegal firearms to go on a shooting spree and killed, 9 or 10 people, almost a dozen people. And I forget what happened to the gunman. Maybe he killed himself. Probably these cowards usually do that. But the guy who sold him the guns, the guy who sold him the firearms illegally, stood trial, and he has to go to prison now for 6 or 7 years for selling the illegal firearms that wound up being used to kill people. And that was kind of an uproar this week. It kind of went under the radar, but I guess among the gun community, it was a big to do. And where I originally saw the article, people were saying, look how Germany handles their illegal gun problem. And the first comment was, this is exactly how the United States handles it too. I don't know about sending the dealers to actually putting manslaughter charges on the seller of the gun, but in the United States, selling illegal weapons is absolutely, like I said, illegal. You can go to prison for a long time for selling weapons illegally. That's not a unique case to Germany. What's unique to Germany is that they tried the seller on manslaughter charges. Basically making the case that the guy who sold the illegal weapons on the black market knew full well that the weapons could be used to harm innocent people. And that's exactly what wound up happening. And Germany brought the hammer down and said, you have blood on your hands. We're bringing manslaughter charges against you because you knew that these weapons you were selling could be used to hurt people. So anyways, back to BitTorrenting. No, the Pirate Bay doesn't necessarily engage in illegal activity themselves, despite naming their website the Pirate Bay. But here's all I'm getting to with this story. When you go on to a sketchy BitTorrent site to download something, even if it's something legal, the ads you see are for, let's just say it, pornography and other illicit things. Does that scream to you, hey, this site is reputable? What I'm doing right here is super above, above the books or head above water, whatever. This is super cool. There's nothing sketchy about this. This article from Ars Technica says, BitTorrent users beware. A flaw lets hackers control your computer. Well, no, duh. You're engaged in something that's already super sketchy. So if you're downloading something illegally and a hacker gets control of your computer, who do you have to blame for that? Are you going to go to the authorities and say, oh, I was downloading the latest Justin Timberlake album off of the Pirate Bay and a hacker took over my computer? Even if you were able to track the hacker down, you wouldn't. But like, you're engaged in illegal activity. Somebody hacked into your computer illegally. Like, everyone's doing something illegal here. So why is it? It's no surprise that, hey, if you use a BitTorrent site, if you use any site to torrent things legally or illegally, by nature, it's super sketchy. And if you're able to download something even legally from a torrent site and you get your computer hacked, you know who's to blame? You. You know that it's sketchy. And I know, I don't want to incriminate myself too much, but I have used torrent sites. I'm not going to say I used it for anything illegal, but I have used torrent sites, and the first warning you get when you download a torrent client is, hey, this is sketchy. You could get a virus from doing this. Don't trust, unscrupulous vendors of torrents. Just beware, right off the bat, warning. Click OK if you want to proceed, knowing that it's super sketchy. So you have to click past that. And if you want to share files with people, whatever, like I said, even just legally, it's still a sketchy way to share files. Like, just get a Dropbox like a normal human being. Dropbox is a big company that monitors their product and keeps it safe. So use Dropbox. And the other thing is, torrent sites, I would wager, are not as popular as they once were because of cloud services, because of cloud storage. You get a Dropbox account for free, and you can share the files with anybody you want, and they're all scanned for viruses by Dropbox itself. So it's a super non-sketchy way to share files. So just don't use BitTorrents. Just use a Dropbox or any other cloud thing. The other thing is, quickly getting out of this segment, Sarah and I brought into our apartment, she got as a gift, an Amazon Dot, an Echo Dot. So you can say Alexa, what's the weather like? And I'm going to demonstrate it here. So if anyone has this device, maybe turn down the volume a little bit unless you want to know the weather. Because I'm going to ask her right now, maybe you can hear it. What's the weather? Alexa, what's the weather right now? Okay, Alexa, hush. Okay, so it just started giving us the weather for Houston. It's so neat. You can play music and stuff like that. And if you get like smart light bulbs, you can control your smart light bulbs, and you can like have it tied into your TV and stuff. And you can be like, Alexa, play the thing, and it will. It's amazing. More Geek Therapy Radio coming up. More interesting geek stories. I'm so bad at getting out of segments. And even worse at getting out of the show altogether. So I'm just going to say Geek Therapy Radio will be right back. Go search for Geek Therapy Radio and download the podcast from the iHeartRadio app, please. You can also get it on Spreaker and iTunes and other stuff, but get it on iHeartRadio app. My bosses love it when I tease iHeartRadio. That's what I'm supposed to do. The iHeartRadio app. Go get Geek Therapy Radio on the iHeartRadio app, and then go to YouTube and subscribe to it on YouTube. I'm going to come back with a stupid YouTube story. Good gracious. It is pretty infuriating, even though I shouldn't be that mad about it. Anyways, more Geek Therapy Radio coming up. I'm Johnny Hamburger. Stay right there. Welcome back to Geek Therapy Radio. I'm still your mental curator, Johnny Hamburger. Time to crack a cold one. I don't think I've ever had this beer before, but I'm going to try it. So the last segment I teased a little ridiculousness coming my way, because it affects me especially. A little YouTube ridiculousness that YouTube has raised the threshold for monetization. And that means, oh, that's a white beer. That's a wheat beer or whatever. Okay, it's good. Anyways, YouTube, I can't monetize videos anymore currently because I don't have the new requirements, which are 1,000 subscribers and you have to have 4,000 hours of viewing per month. Like, people have to view your content for 4,000 collective hours, and you have to have over 1,000 subscribers before you can monetize your videos. Now, the way this affects me is I can't make lunch money off of YouTube anymore. Honestly, I think I was making maybe $2 a month off of YouTube, which I've never cashed out. I've had a YouTube account for a long time, and I've never cashed out. I might have $100 in there. I don't even know. $100. I'm a famous YouTube star. So anyways, now you need 1,000 subscribers, and people need to be watching for 4,000 hours a month. And that YouTube's been going through a lot recently, and I can't help but think that this new monetization threshold was set so conspicuously close to that Logan Paul incident after he posted the video of the dead body. It had millions of views. And just for listeners who might not know how people get paid from YouTube, when you put an ad on your YouTube, like that video or that that commercial you see before videos, basically roughly what it equals out to is 1 million views equals about $1,000. Sometimes more, sometimes a little less, usually over $1,000. So if somebody like this Logan Paul guy puts up a video that gets 15 million views before it's taken down, I don't know if it got 15 million views, but it got a few million views before it's taken down. That's a few $1,000. He made a few $1,000s off that, technically. I don't think YouTube paid him for it, obviously. But yeah, so I think they started this new monetization threshold to keep little idiots from running around with their camera, filming stupid stuff, filming dead bodies, filming whatever, just dumb, horrible, gross things, gory things, disrespectful things, like hateful things. Because as it stood, anybody could monetize. You couldn't monetize anything, but anybody who had a YouTube account could monetize, whether you had 0 subscribers or you have, over 100 like I currently have, or you have 15 million subscribers like Logan Paul has. Anybody could put whatever they want on there and get paid. So that's what explains why when you watch videos, like I was watching a Dave Chappelle stand-up comedy recently, and the uploader had, the guy who owned that channel had, 600 subscribers, something like that, maybe less. But the video has like 20 million views. So that means that guy could could conceivably have made $20,000 off that. Sassy's still outside.
She is. I can see.
Okay, the kitty's outside, and she wants to come in. Anyways, so you could have no subscribers, post a video that goes viral, and make thousands of dollars off of that video. So in the wake of Logan Paul, I bet you YouTube said, okay, we're knocking that crap off. You can't just be a nobody and post a video that goes viral, a video that has something horrible in it, something that goes against YouTube's policies and just decency's policies. You can't post a picture of gore or death, get 20 million views, and then be paid $20,000 for that stupid little video. So YouTube said, all right, now you need to have 1,000 subscribers, which basically means you're pretty well established on YouTube, and you need to have 4,000 hours of viewing per month, both of those things, before your videos can get monetized. On the flip side of that, let's say here's why it really, really pisses me off. Say you're a nobody on, YouTube or any popular site, any popular media outlet. Let's say you're nobody, but you're a musician and you have a really awesome song. Let's say the Gangnam Style guy put out his song, had no subscribers on YouTube. Let's say he had 5 subscribers, puts out Gangnam Style. Gangnam Style has it's in the billions now, billions of views. So does that mean that because, in this case, if the Gangnam Style guy had no subscribers, put out a video that got 3 billion views, does that mean that because he has 0 subscribers that he shouldn't get paid for getting 3 billion views on YouTube? That's where it's stupid. What if I go on there and put a cover of a song or something like that and it just blows up? It just gets it goes viral. Because I only have 100 or so subscribers, does that mean that I shouldn't get paid for providing YouTube with a very popular piece of content? I basically just advertise for YouTube to millions of people. So does that just mean YouTube can keep all of that theoretically generated revenue? That's why it's stupid to me. That's why it pisses me off. Because now YouTube was supposed to be about nobodies getting discovered. YouTube is filled with stories of people who had, no subscribers. They uploaded some song that they recorded, a cover or an original, and it blows up, goes viral, and now there's somebody. The Chocolate Rain guy. Chocolate Rain. How many subscribers does that guy have? Nobody. He had nobody, but that song went stupidly viral. It's I don't know if it's still what's considered viral now, but it's part of pop culture. So under these new guidelines, that means that the Chocolate Rain guy wouldn't get a dime for that. And that's stupid. That is not what... It's just dumb. The new policy is dumb. And I shouldn't really care too much about it because I wasn't making hardly any money off of YouTube originally, but now it's just a further stranglehold that YouTube has done. And I wouldn't be surprised if it gets overturned here eventually. And that's really all I wanted to talk about in that segment. YouTube is just a murky quagmire of ridiculousness right now. And Twitch has stepped up. Amazon owns Twitch. Twitch is a video streaming service that basically caters to gamers. People streaming their playing video games. So Twitch has stepped up in the wake of YouTube's nonsense and said, hey, YouTube creators, why don't you come set up an account with Twitch? We're going to give you all these tools that you need to get popular, and we'll give you anything you need to monetize and do your thing. But Twitch, like I said, caters to gaming. Caters to gamers who are streaming their gaming content. So I have to look into it a little bit more, but I might start... I've got a Twitch account because I used to stream myself playing Street Fighter 2 or 3 times. It wasn't something that I was super crazy into or that I cared enough about to do regularly, but I've got a Twitch account, so I might start uploading stuff on Twitch just to see. It can't hurt. I mean, even if it's just Twitch mainly caters to gamers, a show like mine, Geek Therapy Radio, a lot of gamers like it, so it might work on Twitch, actually. So I don't know how that's all going to work out. I think YouTube is going to kind of see the light and kind of come to some sort of different realization, some sort of different policy. I think that's going to happen in a few months. I think, like I said, they're just shaking in the boots after this Logan Paul debacle. They're just trying to save face. It's damage control over at YouTube at this point. I remember I would upload stuff and I would get flagged. I would try to monetize the video and it would be flagged and it says your video does not have things that advertisers would like to advertise on or something controversial, whatever. It's like, I didn't say anything controversial at all. What sort of a logarithm? What is wrong with your logarithm that takes an innocent segment of Geek Therapy Radio and says, advertisers might not like this. This does not meet our policy. This does not meet our guidelines. It's dumb. More Geek Therapy Radio coming up. There's some neat stuff. I'm going to talk about CES 2018 a little bit. It's whatever. I'll get into it. More Geek Therapy Radio coming up. Go download the podcast on the iHeartRadio app. But the podcast is also available nearly everywhere. Whatever app you're using on your phone to get Geek Therapy Radio, you can probably search Geek Therapy Radio on there and find it. But for the sake of just doing me a solid, go get it on the iHeartRadio app. It's super easy. iHeartRadio app is awesome. Alexa has access to the iHeartRadio app, although Geek Therapy Radio is not on any of that. You can't find Geek Therapy Radio. Alexa, why can't you find Geek Therapy Radio on the iHeartRadio app? That doesn't even answer me. She's playing coy. Sarah's actually concerned that I might be falling in love with Alexa. Well, I mean, I can't. She's listening right now. More Geek Therapy Radio coming up. We'll be right back in just a couple minutes. Stick around. Welcome back to Geek Therapy Radio. I'm Johnny Hamburger, still your mental curator this evening, afternoon, or this morning whenever you're listening to Geek Therapy Radio. And I want to thank you all right now because I've got some pretty sweet, well, I'm getting a lot more I can see a steady increase in listenership every week to the podcast, which is great. It's growing organically, so thank you all for listening to Geek Therapy Radio, and please tell your friends about it. I don't think I've ever asked you guys to do that. Tell your friends about Geek Therapy Radio. If you like it, say, hey, there's some idiot who does this podcast, and sometimes he's kind of funny, and he talks about nerdly things like cars, and music, and astronomy, and other science and technology, and he's about to rip the crap out of CES 2018 right now, which is what I'm going to do right now. So tell your friends. CES 2018, the Consumer Electronics Show. I kind of touched on this last week, a little eensy beensy bit. It's not that impressive to me. Like, the technology is really cool, of course, but I'll just give you for an example. Basically, CES 2018, from what I gather, smart cars got smarter, and our laptops and stuff got thinner. Wow. I mean, that's kind of that's progress, and progress is really cool and all, but like, nothing really stood out. There's nothing like that, just nothing groundbreaking. And I draw the parallel to those of us who grew up in the 80s and 90s, when computers and video games and stuff were just magical. You know, I remember when the Super Nintendo came out in 1991, just being absolutely blown away by the graphics. And thinking, I wasn't alone in thinking this, but just thinking that there's no way graphics can get better. Super Nintendo has already looked better than the arcades. There's no way graphics can get better. Now, that's not really true, because the arcades look better. For instance, a game came out in the arcade, 1995, I believe, Killer Instinct. It was a fighting game, and it was cool. Other than Street Fighter, Killer Instinct is my second favorite fighting game, and it looked amazing. It was developed by the company Rare, R-A-R-E, Rare, who did Battletoads for the NES and did Donkey Kong Country for the Super Nintendo. Rare did a fighting game called Killer Instinct for Nintendo. Now, the arcade cabinet, the Nintendo arcade cabinet for Killer Instinct, if you remember walking by the arcade and seeing the little demo that rolled by, it advertised, there was an advertisement at the beginning of it saying, coming out in 1996 for the Ultra 64. That's what Nintendo was going to call the Nintendo 64. They were going to call it the Ultra 64. So there's all this hype. Holy crap, this new game, Killer Instinct, is awesome. Holy crap, we're going to get a 64-bit Nintendo next year. The Ultra 64. We didn't get it. I mean, we got the Nintendo 64 in 1996. We didn't get the Ultra. I think they said it was coming out in 1995. For summer of 1995 on the Ultra 64. Whatever. When did Killer Instinct come out? When was it 94? Anyways, there was a little bit of a delay between the Super Nintendo and the Nintendo 64. The Super Nintendo came out in the United States in 1991, and the Nintendo 64 came out in 1996. I remember because there was an understanding with my dad. My parents and my dad wouldn't just buy us a video game system when it came out. The rule was there's 2 regulations that had to be met before we could get a new video game system. One, first and foremost, most importantly, we had to come up with at least half the money for it. So if the Nintendo 64, in this case, I think it cost like $300 when it was launched, that means me and my brothers or whoever had to come up with half of it. We had to come up with $150, mow lawns, whatever, save our money up, come up with half. And then my dad would pay the other half if, and only if, we met rule number 2. Rule number 2 was that the system had to have a hockey game. So we had to come up with half the money, and the Nintendo 64 had to have a hockey game on it before we get it. It was the same rule for the PlayStation 2 when it came out in 2001. Had to have a hockey game on it. So the Nintendo 64 had the hockey game. I think it was Wayne Gretzky's 3D Hockey. Was that it? Wayne Gretzky Presents 3D Hockey or something like that. There was a hockey game for the Nintendo 64. So we were able to buy the Nintendo 64. Came with half the money. My dad come up with the other half, and he also bought the Wayne Gretzky's hockey game for it, which was neat. And in 2001, I remember saying the same thing. This all goes back to CES 2018, technology being unremarkable compared to at least our feelings that we had in the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s. So when the PlayStation 2 came out in 2001, same rules. Actually, we didn't get it the year it launched because PlayStation 2 wasn't like $600, $500, $600 when it first came out. It was expensive. So there's no way. Like, not even my dad wouldn't even do the half and half rule for that because it was just too expensive. So it had been out for a year, so I think we got it in 2002. I remember being a senior in high school, and I think I remember it being after 9/11. Anyways, so for Christmas we got the PlayStation 2 after a considerable price drop, but it had a hockey game for it. NHL 2001, I believe it was. And I remember popping in the NHL 2001 disc, which, by the way, the first PlayStation 2 games were not on DVDs. They were on CDs. Remember those blue discs? Those were CD-ROMs, not DVD-ROMs, which means they had 700 megabytes of data, not 4.7 gigabytes that DVDs have. Are you laughing at me?
I'm laughing at Sassy.
Okay. Their cat in the background is just going absolutely bonkers bananas nuts. Anyways, so 2001 hockey game. I remember looking at the hockey players' faces in NHL 2001 and thinking, you can see their faces. They have noses and wrinkles and they're like missing teeth and they have scars. That's crazy. Again, just thinking like it's so lifelike. This might as well be real. Might as well be watching a broadcast of a hockey game. Now in retrospect, we go and look back and like that looks like garbage. That looks so bad. We thought the same thing in 1996 or 7 when GoldenEye came out for 64. GoldenEye is still a great game, still holds up to this day. You can still play GoldenEye right now and it's a great game. But back when it came out in 1996, it was amazing. Like, oh, it's just so lifelike. There's no way graphics will get better than this. Looking at it right now in 2018, looks terrible. The graphics look bad. The game's still good, which just goes to show you that graphics don't make a great game. But yeah, 1996, it looked amazing, looked so lifelike. We thought nothing could get better than this. Now, in 2018, we have Xbox One X. We have, on the PC, we have graphics cards, the GTX 1080 Ti and all that stuff. We have $3,000 graphics cards, and I was about to cuss. stuff really does look lifelike, like legitimately looks like real people. It is incredible, but it's still not amazing. Like at least for me, I don't, maybe I'm in a demographic that's just, it's like the frog boiling in the water pot. Like I'm just used to it now. So when I see a video game or something, some tech demonstration that shows just the most lifelike looking skin and texture, like it's not just the skin looks real. It's that it's like spongy. They've got it down, like the physics of it, down to the way it hangs on bones and stuff and the way the muscles move underneath the skin. It's absolutely insane. But it doesn't have that same magic that we had in 1988 when Super Mario Bros. 2 came out. It just doesn't seem that magical anymore. And in fact, I mentioned earlier that, our devices, our laptops and stuff have just gotten so thin. Like the new, LG? Who did it? Is it Acer? I think Acer came out with like the new world's thinnest laptop. Not the world's lightest, but the new world's thinnest. And it's like, great, that the battery's small, and amazingly, it still holds a headphone jack. But a lot of thin devices can't even fit a headphone jack. So my argument is, in a lot of people's arguments, a lot of consumers are saying, you know what? Why don't you just stop making things thinner? We will sacrifice a millimeter or two just to have a massive battery. Just to have a battery that lasts for days. Like, we'll take an extra millimeter. Just give us amazing battery life and like a better processor. Because with increased thinness comes decreased ability to dissipate heat, which means the processors they put inside these things can only be so powerful up to a certain TDP, a certain total dissipation of, what is it, TDP? Total dissipation. Somebody's going to write me up for that. So comment below. What does TDP stand for? Anyways, it's the amount of watts of heat that the cooling system can dissipate. So when you have something super thin, it's really hard to get the heat out of there. And they have gotten better with it, but it's still not. I would rather, instead of being able to cram a maximum 15 watt chip into something super thin, give me an extra millimeter or two and put a 45 watt chip in there. I'll take the extra horsepower and the extra big battery. Just, if the device is a millimeter or two thicker. I'm distracted by this cat going absolutely out of its ass right now.
I think she got
that. Was it catnip? Was there drugs inside the cat treat?
Probably.
You can't see it. It's off camera if I upload this to YouTube or Twitch. But the black cat Sassy's going nuts. Anyways, that's the end of this segment. That was a good segment 3. I went off the rails a little bit, reminiscing on old tech. But remember, like I said, old technology was amazing. Every time there was a new innovation in old technology, 80s and 90s and early 2000s, it was truly mind-blowing. Like, it was intimidating. Sarah doesn't know because she was born in 1990 and she's just used to seeing all this neat stuff. Or she's just not as into it as I am. I think that's probably... She's just the benefactor of these super thin iPads, and she's been playing the Twitch. She got me this Twitch.
That's not a Twitch.
Or Switch, Nintendo Switch, and she's been playing it. She's been playing it so much. Because I made fun of her that she wasn't going to get good at Tetris, and now she's probably going to be able to kick my butt. Anyways, more Geek Therapy Radio coming up. I'm so bad at getting out of segments. It's ridiculous. Go get the podcast Geek Therapy Radio on the iHeartRadio app, Geek Therapy Radio on the iHeartRadio app, geektherapyradio.com, Geek Therapy Radio on YouTube. Go get me over 1,000 subscribers so I can start making some Skrilla, some cheddar, some ducats. Videos. I'm getting over sickness. We'll be right back, more Geek Therapy Radio. Let me pronounce that. We'll be right back with more Geek Therapy Radio. Stick around. Welcome back to Geek Therapy Radio. Johnny Hamburger, mental curator, this afternoon, this evening, or this morning, whenever you're listening to the Geek Therapy Radio podcast on the iHeartRadio app. I keep saying the iHeartRadio app because my new boss, Justin, came into the studio, can I say my office? It's my office for 8 hours of the day. He came in, he's like, can I talk to you about something? It's like, what? I didn't say it like that. I was like, sure, boss. Whatever you say, boss. What's going on? Pal, old buddy, old pal?
I've seen that.
Justin's my friend. It's weird when your friend, like, becomes your boss technically, because it's like, we were both in the trenches together for years, and now he's my boss. So Justin came in, and one of the things he told me, we were going over, like, promos for my show, and one of the things he told me, he's like, hey, you need to plug the iHeartRadio app. Like, corporate super doesn't like it if we plug iTunes so much. So make sure you're plugging the iHeartRadio app. You can mention the other stuff, but like really plug the iHeartRadio app. Which I agree. I mean, the iHeartRadio app genuinely, this isn't just because I work for iHeartMedia, but the iHeartRadio app it does keep getting better and better. And for one thing that it does great is if you subscribe to Geek Therapy Radio, like you'll get a notification, super like discreetly, you'll get a notification that says, hey, a new episode of Geek Therapy Radio is up. So that's super cool. So get Geek Therapy Radio on the iHeartRadio app. You can get it in other avenues, like I've mentioned before. You can just Google it and it's everywhere. For instance, we use Spreaker to upload all of our podcasts. All of the shows on iHeartRadio upload through Spreaker. iHeart has an account through Spreaker. So while you can listen to the shows on Spreaker, use the iHeartRadio app. Like, that's the most important thing. That'll help me out. That'll help iHeart out. But most importantly, it'll help us, the creators of these shows. It'll help us out a lot. So download Geek Therapy Radio podcast on Spreaker. While you're at it, go get Black Coffee Radio. That's Justin and Craig's show. And get What's on Tap Radio. It's about beer. That's James Simpson's show. So go download follow or subscribe, whatever, the Geek Therapy Radio podcast, the Black Coffee Radio podcast, and the What's on Tap Radio podcast. All of it's available on the iHeartRadio app, so go grab it. Couple quick things before I get out of this week's Geek Therapy Radio. The United States and Europe are still science superpowers, but China is rising fast. And now you might be thinking, well, you know, that's not such a big deal. That's okay. China has billions of people. And China, like, I mean, it's growing in all sorts of ways, economically and industrially and technologically. So it makes sense that they're growing in the field of science as well. There's scientific research in their breakthroughs and stuff. Usually what would happen is people from China would come to the United States, for instance, or Europe, to do their research because China just didn't have the state of technology, the state of the art to be able to conduct the research. So Chinese citizens would come to the United States and Europe to do their research, obviously. But now they really are not needing to do that so much anymore because the state of their infrastructure and the state of the art in China is rapidly catching up to the West. So I think overall that's a good thing. There's a big giant meteor that blew up over Michigan last week. Here's just cool. There's videos of it on YouTube. Just search Meteor in Michigan 2018, and it's really, really cool. What's a couple of other things? Here's something that pissed me off a little bit. Actually, this didn't piss me off. Samsung's releasing GDDR6 memory for your video cards. I think as soon as the next generation are going to get GDDR6 memory, which is way better than GDDR5 and even better than GDDR5X. So it's a major stride. GDDR6 memory for video cards is a massive step forward. So that's great. Shell, the oil company, invests in a Nashville solar farm. And this hippie report says, but it's no less an oil company. I've said this many times on this show, how it pisses me off that we make progress. We make amazing progress towards renewable energy and solar energy and geothermal and stuff. But hippies have to interject, but it's still an oil company, but we still burn oil. Stop it. It's progress. That's what the name of the game is, progress. And guess what? Energy, our dependency on oil, our dependency on oil is going to pay for the transition to get off of oil. So what I'm saying is Shell creating a massive solar farm in Nashville, but this article says, but it's no less an oil company. Why do you have to put that little jab in there? You do realize that oil companies aren't actually oil companies. They're energy companies. That's why they invest in the future of energy, because they want to sell you solar electricity. Because even the oil companies, quote unquote, know that oil isn't going to get us through forever, that we need to go to renewable energy. I'm not even going to say green energy. That's just part and parcel of progress. Is yes, it's going to be green, quote unquote, energy. But I don't like using words like green because that's a political term. It's just one of those terms that to kind of poke you and piss you off. It's like global warming. Well, it's climate change. Yes, the Earth is getting warmer, but what's happening is climate change. So the term global warming is more infuriating to people than just the term climate change. That's a more appropriate term for it. So saying Shell investing in solar farms, but it's still an oil company. No, they're an energy company. That's going to do it for Geek Therapy Radio this week. I have some awesome guests coming up in the next little while, over the next few months on Geek Therapy Radio. I have Michael Berry coming on the show. He's agreed to come on the show with me. Michael Berry, I've known Michael forever. He used to be my boss a little while back, and now I'm one of the producers on his show again. So that's great. Michael's a super awesome guy. He's the biggest nerd that I know. So it's going to be cool to have Michael Berry on the show. I also have Glenn, I forget his last name, but he owns Spectre Studios. He's a big, famous YouTube guy. I think it's Spectre Studios on YouTube. He's awesome. He's up there in Canada. I have Colin from This Does Not Compute coming back on the show coming up in the following weeks. And I have, who's the other guy? I forget. I have got lots of awesome guests coming up on on Geek Therapy Radio. So be sure you're subscribed to the podcast and make sure you're listening to me on the iHeartRadio app. Subscribe to the podcast on the iHeartRadio app. Super easy. That's going to do it for Geek Therapy Radio this week. If I forgot anything, I'll just do it next week, I guess. Let me know what your geek thing is. geektherapy@iheartmedia.com. That's geektherapy@iheartmedia.com. You can also go to geektherapyradio.com and send me a message through there. There's all sorts of ways to get in contact with me. Geek Therapy Radio on Facebook. Type your stuff on there. Let me know what you're into. Let me cover some more stuff that you are into. But that's going to do it for Geek Therapy Radio this week. I'm Johnny Hamburger. Thank you so much for listening. Have a great week, my geeks. Love each other. Support each other. Just be good to each other. My show is about our hobbies and interests that bring us together, not the politics that drive us apart. So be good to each other. Aren't you tired of the division politics creates by now? I'm not saying that listening to political shows isn't fun, but if you get really pissed off at politics, maybe kind of look inside yourself, look around you, see what really matters, find your geek thing, and relate to people on that level that you share a common interest. Anyways, I love you, my geeks. Good show this week. I will see you guys next week. Be good to each other, and have a great week.